Well, it's a consistency I've seen in all the stuff you've talked about over the years and talking about this show. You've always made a point, at some point, to shine a light on the actual men and women that this show is based on the actual agents, on the actual law enforcement.
Right.
You do a lot in your spare time supporting your local law enforcement. All that. Did
Yeah.
that appreciation, did you have that before you were on the show? Did that grow through experiencing this?
I think it's grown. It especially grew, especially with my, I do a lot with the United States military. I've been hosting the National Memorial Day concert. This will be my 19th year doing that in Washington, D.C. Gary Sinise and I have been doing it together for about, I brought Gary in about 17 years ago, and we've been doing it.
Gary, yeah.
I did because Charles Durning brought me in, who was the great Charles Durning, the actor. He was a Silver Star recipient in World War II. He happened to mention to me, we were doing the series, First Monday. It was one of my first TV series with James Garner. It was about the Supreme Court. And Charlie says to me, it was sometime like in April of that year, he says, Joe, next month, Memorial Day, would you mind coming to Washington, D.C. and doing this? I do this concert called the National Memorial Day Concert. I'd never even seen it. I didn't even know they were done this concert. For me, Memorial Day, for most people, was, oh yeah, the Indianapolis 500, barbecue, have a nice weekend. But I loved Charlie, and I said, oh, it sounded interesting, Charlie. I said, gee, all four of my uncles, actually 5 of the uncles I was closest to in my life, all served in World War II, so there were a lot of vets in my family. I grew up in the Vietnam era, but due to the draft and me having a high draft number because of my birthday, I never got drafted. So I never thought much about the military. My uncles then never talked about, because they were combat veterans, but as often the case, they didn't talk about it. But I said, sure, I'll go. Well, I wound up doing that concert that year. It was the Memorial Day right after 9/11, so it was Memorial Day 2002. So so now I'm being asked to do this concert, and I don't even know what so they tell me, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get up on stage, and you're going to read this, and you're going to do that. What I wound up doing was reading the words of 4 New York firemen who all 4 of their sons were killed showing up at 9/11. And I'm on the stage, which is built in front of the United States Capitol, and in front of me are 250,000 people. It's a live free concert they do every year. And behind me, the Washington Symphony Orchestra is playing Mozart's Requiem, and on these screens that are 3 stories tall on each side of me, they're showing footage of the planes flying into the World Trade Center. And I'm having to say words, and sitting in the front row, in front of the 250,000 people, on the first row are the 4 firemen in their dress blue uniforms, all fathers of firemen who lost in that tragedy, with their wives. And I'm having to say lines like, on a good day, you're going through the rubble and you find a scrap of your son's uniform. Because they had interviewed these men earlier, and this is where this is coming from. Well, the music's playing. At that moment, I realized this was something way beyond anything I'd ever done as a performer or an actor in my entire life. That I'm relating history, and the history was the history that I don't have to explain to you. This is New York. So from that moment, when it finished, and I finished the last words, it's hard for me to talk about it now, because I had to walk down the steps and hug these firemen and their wives, and my legs were like, it was like spaghetti. And I walked off that stage thinking how lucky I was, how blessed I was to live in this country and to been through the things, have gotten through the things that I've gotten through in my life, but to see, okay, this is important stuff. And so when they asked me then to become part of this concert from that point on, I readily agreed. And then Ozzie Davis used to be the host. He passed away. They came to me, asked me if I would like to host it on my 3rd year there. And that's when I said, there's somebody else that needs to do this show, because he is, I think, one of the greatest patriot we have in this country, not just in show business, but just in general. And that's Gary Sinise, because what he does for our military, for the wounded and all that.
I've talked to him twice for his books.
So so I called him up. He said, I'll be glad to do it. And once he came in, I said to him, Gary, why don't we just co-host this thing together from this point on? He said, I'm in.
I'm there. Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing.